you so much for watching, listening, of course, subscribing. Oh, that's a shocker, right? You need to subscribe because of great content. And this whole series, Trauma Drama, is absolutely share worthy. You totally want to share this with your friends. And let's get the joke over with. You're like, ah. So I went to the ER the other day and I told the nurse I was bit by a wolf. And then she said, where? And I said, no, regular. Werewolf. You're like, oh my gosh. I know, that's why we put the jokes at the beginning, so the grown, you can get on with the fantastic content. So we're looking at our series here, Trauma Drama, and this is our 4th episode in this series, and it's healing from trauma. And trauma, we talked about this in one of the previous episodes. Trauma can be the result of abandonment, of abuse, of a violent attack. That's what happened to the man walking down the road to Jericho in Jesus' Good Samaritan parable. But the point of all this is, okay, trauma. And what do we do to heal from trauma, to be a person who provides healing? Because it's not just enough that we're consumers with Jesus and the good news and the gospel, but that we're also conduits for the gospel. That we not only, and I found this for myself, there are times when I need healing or I really am desperate for Jesus to work in my soul and my heart. And when I'm aware of it and I let Jesus do that through me, a lot of times I experience it at the same time, concurrent in me. And so when you think about healing from trauma, I want us to not only think of it for ourselves, but also through us. Because in this parable of the Good Samaritan, there's lots of different characters, 6 actually, in this parable. And in this parable, among those characters, a lot of us focus on the victim, the guy who got beat up along the road. And then we focus, reasonably so, on the Good Samaritan, because he's the hero in it. And I want us to look for a few minutes here at the verbs that this Good Samaritan did to help heal this victim. And I would point out to you that maybe the priest and the Levite and the predecessors to the Samaritan, maybe as they walked by, maybe all they saw in this dude that got beat up, maybe all they saw was a victim. And a lot of times when we see people that have experienced trauma and they're acting out of that traumatic experience, they're ugly, they're repulsive, they're disgusting, we want to get away from them. And a lot of times all we see is the victim. We see the victim expression of that trauma. But maybe if we're going to be a Good Samaritan, maybe instead of seeing a victim, we see a patient. Somebody who is in recovery, who has the opportunity to be healed. If all we see is a victim, then clearly we're going to walk away and not engage. And I think sometimes that's what religion does. They see victims and, hope, good for you, hope it gets better, and keeps walking. But if we think about this Good Samaritan, he sees a patient. He sees somebody who can be well, who can be healed, and he can participate in that healing. So what does the Good Samaritan do? Well, first off, there's in essence 8 verbs that this Good Samaritan does. And it says in verse 33, a Samaritan who was on the journey came upon him, and when he saw him, verb 1, he saw him. He had compassion, verb 2. So you can see, and the priest and the Levite, they saw, and they just kept walking. The priest, the Levite, had the same reaction, but the Good Samaritan had a different reaction. He had compassion. And then it says, he came to him and bandaged up his wounds. Wound there in the Greek is the word trauma. He bandaged the wound. He poured in oil and wine. He lifted him onto his beast of burden. He led him to an inn. He took care of him. And then he passed on this patient to the innkeeper, and he paid the innkeeper money so that the patient could recover, have time to recover. I would encourage you that maybe over the next few days or so, read these 2 verses that relate to the verbs, the recovery verbs. And maybe in your Bible or whatever, circle them, underline them, highlight them, make a list of these verbs, because these verbs are an integral piece to healing, recovery from trauma. Because all of us, the human race, that's a commonality of the human race, is trauma. Every single person. You have experienced, I have experienced, everybody around us has. But if we're going to be healers and be healed, then these are essential verbs for that journey and process of healing. So thank you for subscribing, sharing with your friends. Hit the notification bell right there. And I want to just encourage you, we're going to continue to see what these verbs looks like and how this plays out in our lives in the next series that we're going to do. So thanks again for watching. Thanks for subscribing. Have a great week.